We have a drum roll? We have a drum roll here? We got a drum roll here? Good morning. Good morning, 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 good morning. And I know this is I know, all right, how many people are following? This is like a show of hands. How many people are following in the room? Right, kind of following? Right, most of the room? Okay. Anyone have any questions? Right, anyone have any questions? Let's just kind of hold for a second. Anyone would just ask a question about something that's not clear, right, in any sense, shape, or form. Yes. Right, well, pass the microphone over there. Okay? Let's go on this journey together. Jane. No, we need a little volume there. Question, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
You hear me?
There we are.
Yes. So how about being of plot also being a property of story?
Good, fantastic. So can I address that for a second now before we take the next question? So Jane's got it. And by the way, we did not fucking set this up, right? But she's exactly right. So what that means is that the story has a plot line. Jane just got it like next sentence, right? She completely intuited where we are. So every story has a plot line. That's what a story has. Everyone agree the story has a plot line? Stories have plot lines, right? So therefore, if the universe, right, what's our first sentence from this week? Reality is not merely a fact. Reality is it's not an ordinary story. It's a love story. So what does that mean? It means that Eros, or love, is the plot line of the story. Whoa, now let's just go slow. Let's just relax here. We're just relax, right? We don't do wine in the morning, okay? Whoa, that was a lot of wine, okay? Right? So what does Eros mean? Eros is all the way up and all the way down. We're just going to play. We're in day 6. We're going to play. We'll be gone tomorrow, right? But this is how we break, right, the postmodern predicament, okay? This is how we restore value. This is what Putin never heard. This is what Xi never heard, right? This is what Obama, this doesn't exist yet in the academy. It's not there. This is where we got to go, right? I spent this year 10 long sessions, unpacking this with Ken Wilber, and he said to me, this is the piece we didn't get in integral theory. We didn't get the value, right? We weren't able to, this is big. And Zach, myself, and Ken are now working on this, and we spend hours, right? I mean, it's everything. It changes the game. So reality is a story. So Jane says, and she's not a shill. We didn't set her up. We didn't pay her. Reality has a plot line. It's fucking going somewhere. Okay, so what are the plot lines? Just 10 seconds. We do 10 hours on this. Just a few minutes, a couple minutes. Plot lines. So reality is going towards more and more Eros. So what does Eros mean? We have an Eros equation. What's Eros mean? Eros is the experience of radical aliveness, seeking, desiring, ever more contact, and ever greater wholeness. Is that a plot line? Sure is. It sure is. That sure is a plot line, right? We're in the source code now. That's a plot line. Did everyone get that's a plot line? That's a plot line. Eros has another property. What's it called? Intimacy. What is intimacy? Intimacy is shared identity in the context of otherness times mutuality of recognition. We recognize each other. Times mutuality of pathos. Times mutuality of pathos. We feel each other. Times mutuality of value. Times mutuality of purpose. So if we say the second plot line of reality is evolution is the evolution of intimacy. You get how that changes reality? It's not just simplicity to complexity. It's my desire to be intimate is not my weird pathology working out my early childhood issues, although that may shape, right, the story of my intimacy in some way. But my fundamental desire for intimacy is the cosmos awake and alive in me. Because reality is not simplicity to complexity, yawn, or die, or commit suicide, 1 million people a year, right? Or the collapse of value and all of its implications. Reality is the progressive deepening of intimacies. And I hope at this point, when we say this sentence again, I hope what doesn't go off in your head is, didn't we say that sentence 3 days ago? I hope this sentence resonates in an entirely different way by now. That's what I said. This is not information in the bit bite. You got to actually, you feel it, right? So reality is the progressive deepening of intimacies. So it's more and more eros, more and more intimacy. What else? More and more, we said yesterday, uniqueness. So my unique self, me reaching for my unique self, is an expression of reality in me reaching for more uniqueness. So if I don't live my unique self, then reality is missing its own reaching, and I'm alienated from reality. Right? Do you remember the first text we cited on the first day from Cook? Right? The shameless behavior of the era at the edge of the apocalypse comes from the demand inherent in society in this generation that every detail be connected to cosmic magnificence. Who remembers that sentence? Every detail. Who remembers that sentence? I'm giving it to you again if you don't. Okay? I'll give it to you again. Okay? Right? The shameless favor, meaning the breakdown. The shameless favor, the breakdown that at the edge of the apocalypse, he writes this 100 years ago, will come from what? Right? The demand that we have that our lives matter in an ultimate sense. And what does it mean that our lives matter in an ultimate sense? Right? It means that every detail of my life is connected, writes Cook, to cosmic magnificence. What are we doing right now? We're connecting the details to cosmic magnificence. Did you get that? We're saying that my story is not just a story. My story is chapter and verse in the universal love story. And so far it's got 3 plot lines. Plot line 1, anyone? What's plot line 1? Anyone? Plot line 1. I can't hear anybody. What's plot line 1? Rob, what's plot line 1? First plot line. Eros, desire, yes. Eros, which is desire for value. So eros and desire, first plot line. Second plot line, desire for intimacy. Third plot line, uniqueness. Let me ask you again. What's the first plot line? Eros, which is desire for value. Second plot line, right? More and more intimacy means more and more shared identity. Right? Right? So when we talked together for the last 5 years about egocentric, ethnocentric, world-centric, cosmocentric, you guys did here in Belgium a beautiful Organizations for the Future. On egocentric, ethnocentric, cosmocentric, world-centric, that's about the evolution of intimacy. That's the desire for more and more intimacy, which means more and more shared identity. And more mutuality of pathos. And more mutuality of value and purpose, right? So uniqueness is 3. What's 4? Well, it's another plot line of Cosmos, only 5 or 6, that's it. 4 is more and more creativity. More and more creativity, right? So God is willing, when I sit after dinner tonight with James and Martin, we envision what a new festival might look like. So it's not a couple of guys being creative, a couple of women being creative, right? It's we're participating literally in the creativity of cosmos itself unfolding in us, as us, and through us. More and more creativity, right? And then there's a deeper, more and more depth and subtlety to story, right? Story. And finally, last one, there's actually more and more value. And we'll get to that one. But those are plot lines of Cosmos. Okay? Okay, we have a drum roll? Now, let's hold for a second. Who's following? All right, if anyone's not following, ask another question. Right? Is there any other question? Thank you. Any other questions in the space? And please, this is not a time for any shame or I can ask 1,000, right? Just I want to make sure we're together in this, because if we're together, it's crazy fun. And if I lost the thread, then I'm like, whoa, what happened? Right? So I'm happy to just take your time, relax. Easy listening, right? Right? Easy listening. We're on the easy listening station. Okay? We have a question there on the cheap seats.
The audience, not from the online, she wanted to know what is value.
Right. So value is, again, what value is means I desire a certain direction, and I experience that direction that I desire as being meaningful, valuable. Now, the important thing about the word value is, and we're going to get to value in a couple minutes, so I'm not going to go too much into it now, but there are certain words that there's nothing underneath them. We call those first principle and first value words. Words that there's nothing underneath them. What's underneath the word desire? Try and reduce the word desire to something else. Try it. Not so easy. Right? Trying to reduce the word value. So you can say story, value, meaning, information. There's clusters of words, but value means yes. It matters. Right? Value means it matters. Right? It matters. It's aligned with the nature of the real. It's not a fiction. It matters, and it's aligned or an expression of the nature of the real. Right? That's what we can actually establish. And you notice we're going here. Does everyone notice here? There's no declarations. Oh, wow. Mark, Barbara, Ken, we sat around, we declared a list of values. Fuck that. That's going to get us absolutely nowhere. Right? We'll get to what the values are, not this session, not this week. Right? What are those first, right? But in other words, right, value is story, and story has 4 components, and those components exist all the way up and all the way down. They evolve, continuity and discontinuity. Does everyone get what I mean by continuity and discontinuity? Did I lose you there? You get what I show of hands? Who gets what I mean by continuity? Means there's a continuous thread of unfolding, and yet there's jumps at different levels, which we'll get to in a second. So that's in terms of the online question. Anyone else? Is there a hand up there or just exercising? Yes. Yes. Take it away.
I want to know whether I understand it right. When you say it matters, what kind of hit me was, okay, so desire is matter.
Desire is, you're absolutely right, at the heart of matter. Matter itself is desire, right, which seeks to create a new value, which is a new whole. That's actually what it is, right? So when we say you just got that so fucking beautifully, right? I mean, and again, we didn't plan all these people, but you just hit that exactly right. When we say it matters, right, and that's actually a line, right, in the text of this writing. You just hit it gorgeously, right? Right, gorgeously. Are you looking for a job? Right? No, it's fantastic.
I actually am looking for a job.
There we go.
I don't have a job.
There we go. We're going to talk about that. Quinks is hiring, okay? Right? But here we go, right? So stay with us. It's beautiful what you just said. So we say it matters. And language is so gorgeous. So it matters means it's meaningful. But it also means matter. And matter is physical matter. And what physical matter is the desire of separate parts to form a larger whole, and their self-experience, that's the story they should be in, and that's what they're allured to do, and it fucking matters, and that's the way to go. And there's no split between those two. Look at how gorgeous language is. That's what that Hebrew word is doing. Davar, thing, means logos. Same word. You see how this is in the structure of everything, everyone? Right? And as you see, we're doing spirituality in a completely different way. We're doing something completely different here because we have to do something completely different in order to actually reweave a fractured cosmos. Right? Okay. So now, let's tell a story. We have time for a story? Okay? You have one more question. Please, go ahead. Lady G. Microphone for the lady.
Here, microphone.
Yes.
I'm afraid it's a dumb question.
There's no such thing. Well, that might be. No.
It's maybe not really a question. It's more...
Oh, please.
I feel, when evolution is in us, why should we have all this talking about it? And my thought is then, when things happen, that's also something what evolution creates in us. So I remember a sentence I read, I don't know where, but once. That was a sentence, the grass will not grow harder by pulling on it. And that spoke to me in that time. And now I think, what am I doing here? If evolution is in me, why shouldn't I trust that things are going itself?
So
what am I missing?
I'm not completely sure I understand the question, right? But I appreciate it, and of course I appreciate you, and it's wonderful to see you in person, which is a complete delight. But let's say it this way: we live in inescapable frameworks. We live in stories. Our story now is that stories don't matter and values don't matter, that they're fictions. That story is the basis of enormous suffering in the world, of babies dying and getting ripped apart, and men and women getting killed, and people starving, right? And in this moment, as we sit in this beautiful, comfortable room, right, the nature of the stories we have told has allowed 2 billion people in the world not to have drinking water, right? In other words, so the story we tell about reality matters, and realizing that story is actually real and that value is real actually creates reality. And we create reality through the word. So, for example, when Da Vinci and Fassino in the Renaissance encountered suffering, and they couldn't go into every village and heal every person, they realized what they needed to do was tell a new story about reality, which would actually, right, transform reality. And that was called modernity, right? And all the goods of modernity that we talked about earlier in the week came from that new story. So in other words, the way we change reality and address suffering, right, is by actually changing the superstructure of reality itself. Right now, last sentence, and then we'll tell you a story. This relates to what we talked about with Walter last night. We are not naturally good, which is what you're pointing towards. You're saying, oh, we're naturally good. We're not naturally good. We're inherently good. Inherently mean intrinsically we're good, but that goodness requires us to tell the story of that goodness, right? To reclaim story as a value, to reclaim value as value. In other words, the nature of reality is not that we stay in Eden. The description you just gave, which was very beautiful, as always, is a description of the Garden of Eden. And if I would actually locate that description, that was a beautiful description of the pre-tragic. Right? In other words, it just happens. We're in Eden, and there it is. But actually, no, we get exiled from Eden. Right? Right? Cain kills Abel. Right? There's fratricide. Right? There's enormous suffering. And we actually have to find our way back to Eden. Right? And so we've got to go, right? We can't, in other words, and much of the New Age world, right, says, let's just be. Let's be in the pre-tragic. Right? But the pre-tragic actually won't take us home, right? Much of the postmodern world just says it's tragic, and we're saying, no, it's post-tragic. We can actually find our way back to Eden. That's what we're doing.
Yeah, but my point is, don't we need the suffering to come back to Eden?
Well, I mean, that, again, with total respect and like deep, like bow and honor, right? We shouldn't say, don't we need the suffering when we're talking about 2 billion people's their suffering, right? In other words, right? There's an enormous amount of suffering in the world, which is tragic beyond imagination, and so we're not talking about the existential angst of where to live, right, or who to love. We're talking about massive, brutal suffering. Right, that demarcates an enormous amount of reality, and we're talking about, and we'll end here, and we can pick this up offline. We're talking about also heading to a level of suffering which will eliminate the future. Right, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about there being no future. So we're talking about what we're calling catastrophic risk and existential risk, and it's very easy. That's and gentle. Thank you for being that beautiful voice in the room. It's very easy, gently, to kind of. It's very hard to grok that. So just let's hold it here. Let's hold it here for a second, right? And so it's a beautiful voice in the room, but we're talking about actually existential and catastrophic risk. That's what we're talking about, right? And so in order to actually address that, we have to actually tell this new story of value, right? Right? And so just maybe reflect, maybe just meditate it. So I'm going to go forward now. With permission, is that okay?
Yeah, well, I like it very much, but
yeah.
Yeah.
So hold it. Just sit with it. Is that okay? Beautiful. Just sit with it for a little bit, okay? Yeah. Okay.